Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann, and I show men and women how they can live healthy, happy, sustainable lives. And I'm really delighted because today I'm joined by Dr. Sally Littleton. Hi, Sally.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for inviting me on your program.
It's so great to see you, and I know it's early in the morning for you. And for those people that don't actually yet know you, Sally works as a master Reiki teacher. So before we get into that, Sally, I'm just really curious to know a bit about your background. Tell us about your childhood to start with.
Well, I had in some ways a very challenging childhood. It was wonderful in many ways. I was born in Southern California and I grew up by the ocean, and it was, that was really fabulous. But there was a lot of dysfunction. I had my parents were divorced when I was quite young, and my father was an alcoholic, but I didn't really recognize that until much later. But my stepfather was an alcoholic and violent, and to my mother. So we ran a lot, and I actually lived in 39 places as a child. So it was very very chaotic in a lot of ways.
Oh my goodness. I guess the other thing as well is as children, we're like a sponge, aren't we? We're absorbing all this information. And some of the things we learn that become beliefs for us are great and they serve us well. And sometimes there are things that we grow up thinking are the truth that aren't really the truth that serves us. So did you find that you grew up with lots of beliefs that served you and some that really didn't, that you ended up changing a bit later on?
Oh, for sure. I found a lot of peace as a child in nature. I would spend a lot of time at the ocean, and my grandparents had a cabin in the mountains in California, in the Sierra Nevadas, and I was really drawn to that, and that helped me tremendously, I think. And my spiritual connection I had also, I was fortunate to have that as a child. But I learned a lot of unhealthy ways of relating to people, for the at the very least, and trust was not easy for me, and I I thought that I was always a very honest person. I was always intending to be honest, but I learned to hide what I felt and what I thought, uh, and thought that that was a good thing, when I was able to do that. And uh, there were just lots of losses and lots of uncertainty. And um, I was fortunate that most of the violence was not directed at me, but it was at my mother, who was my primary person in life. So, I watched what she did and tried not to emulate it in many ways. But, as a young adult, I found my own personal alcoholic and was married to an alcoholic for a long time, and not violent. I was very fortunate that I did not repeat that. But you know, I wasn't able to, as much as I sought training too. I mean, I became a psychotherapist, and maybe, I guess I wasn't a psychotherapist yet when I was with him, or towards the end I was. But I was in training, and I was working in the court system, and I was doing all these things. And there was a huge disconnect. But after, I realized at some point that it was me, because I thought that it was him. I thought it was all him. And I thought that he knew what he was doing always that was hurtful to me. And I just had a lot of beliefs that were not helpful. And I didn't stand up for myself in a lot of ways, although I was always strong. I, accepted a lot of unacceptable stuff in my life. And that was all learned from my childhood, I think.
How old were you when you had that kind of epiphany that it was actually that you were responsible for some of that, or at least your way of
Oh gosh, I was old. I didn't have that awareness until I was like 36. When I was 36, I was coming out of a marriage, and I wanted to be through with men, but I knew that that was probably not true. Because all my issues, I thought at least, were all around men. because I was successful professionally, and I got along with people well. I mean, I didn't have other issues that I was aware of at that time. I had health issues, but I didn't think that was related to that. And I just thought, well, more men are coming, and I want to be different. It's something about me. I have to change it.
It's powerful, isn't it, when you get to that point where you realize that you do actually have a say. And I know you think that being in your 30s is quite late to kind of realize that actually it's about us taking responsibility. But some people, I guess, get to their deathbed and they still haven't learned that in this lifetime. So and there may be people watching who are dealing with that, and they are much older. So I think whatever age we are when we come to it, it's an extraordinary thing to happen, and life completely shifts after that, doesn't it?
Yes, and I think the reason I think of that as being so old for myself, I didn't mean to imply that for others, but was that I had thought that I was aware of all this for a very long time, and I had been working on it for a long time, and still I didn't recognize my part in it. I was pretty judgmental of other people, in not, and I say this, not like as a therapist I wasn't or whatever, but in my personal life, I would think, any fool would know that, I mean, any fool could see that that's not appropriate, or, I need something else, or my children need something else, or whatever. And I just didn't realize that I wasn't being very clear a lot of the time about what I did think and what I did feel, and asking even for what I needed. I learned as a child, even explicitly, I was told you should never ask. Even if somebody asks you, what would you like as a gift, you would never say. You're not supposed to say. So I learned that, and that, I think, hampered me in my ability. Even though I was such a great communicator in many ways, I was not communicating clearly at all what I felt and what I needed and what mattered to me in personal situations.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally relate to that. So tell us your story then from you talked about being a psychotherapist. I mean, how did that come about? And tell us your story really from leaving home to where you are now doing what you absolutely love.
Okay. Well, I married my first husband at 17 and left home. And I had one semester of college at that time, because I graduated very early from high school. And I had been, to start with, how I got to be a therapist, though, was that early on in my life, when people would say, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I knew that I wanted to help people, and that my goal at that time was to be a social worker. And my family all said, you're too sensitive. You wouldn't be a good social worker. You would be too upset by everybody's problems and stuff. Which, by the way, many people think that about, which was not true for me at all. And I don't think it has to be true for people. But anyway, so when I married, it interrupted my college, because my first husband never worked at all, ever. And so I couldn't get student loans or anything, because he was capable of working and didn't. And anyway, so I didn't qualify. I couldn't finish. I couldn't continue in school, which I did not understand that at all. And but then later, in a period when I was apart from him, I was able to go back to school, and I did that. And I got my bachelor's degree in a couple of years. And in that, and I had a baby by that time too, by the way. But anyway, I learned what I really loved doing. I had really forgotten my idea about being, helping people and being a social worker. I started out in business, and I realized that just really wasn't working for me. And I took a couple of classes in the undergrad, and it became clear to me that I really wanted to work with people, to help people. And then I went on and got my master's degree in a year. and started working for the courts and started working. By then I had 2 children because I'd gone back with him. And um, when I worked with the courts, I realized I really wanted to work in private practice because I didn't like the constraints of the court system and a lot of other things about the court system, which I won't go into. But anyway, so I started private practice, and I continued to do that. I subsequently divorced and remarried and moved to England. And in England, I left my first husband, and I would have liked to stay there at the time, but I couldn't because my visa, or whatever it was called, was connected to him. So I had to leave, and I came back, and I was pretty down at that point in my life. That's when I started going to 12-step programs, and I realized, because I had to change myself. I didn't have any money to get therapy anymore. I'd had therapy. I'd graduated several times from therapy, but obviously there were a few things I had missed. But anyway, at that time I thought, well, I really shouldn't even be a psychotherapist anymore because I'm too messed up. But circumstances affected me, and I decided to start working again as a psychotherapist. And I moved to a beautiful town in Michigan, northern Michigan, and built my private practice very quickly. It was like, divine intervention or something. And maybe that was enough to answer your question.
Wow, I mean, I really appreciate your honesty, Sally. So let's talk a little bit about Reiki, because I know what it is. I've experienced it. I think it's absolutely wonderful. But some people may not be familiar with it. So can you explain what it is?
Well, yes, I can, I think. Reiki is a healing energy. That's what most people know of it as, is a healing energy, a healing light energy, a spiritual healing energy. There's different ways that people explain it, a universal energy. It's the energy that is in all things. And when we connect to Reiki, we can heal ourselves and we can help others to heal themselves. But what most people don't understand about Reiki is that it's not only a healing energy, it's a system that allows us to heal ourselves, allows us to help ourselves have a much stronger connection. And with that, to also help others if we choose. But the way that I teach Reiki is based on what the founder actually taught and said, which is quite different from what most people know, because the Reiki that's most well known in the world is Western Reiki. And that has a much more strong focus of healing others. And it's mostly about physical healing, where actually the founder was intending that we would heal not only physically, but very much spiritually and emotionally, and that the system that he developed, as we practice it, it allows us to make that connection stronger and stronger, and to heal everything in our own lives. Heal, as I said, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And in the process of doing the practices that we embrace, we raise our vibration. And as we raise our vibration, we heal. And in so doing, we heal ourselves. We learn to emanate that light to everyone, so that everyone that we are in contact with, they also are raised and they are healed. Even ideally, even when they don't have any idea that that's happening, when we're walking down the street or what, that we're emanating that, and it's helping people.
Although obviously it's been scientifically proven that energy exists, because it's not something that you can see, for a lot of people it's basic, they can't even get their head around it. And and some of those people might dispute the fact that this Reiki thing could possibly work. So what do you say to people like that, Sally?
Oh, I say that, Reiki, you don't have to believe in Reiki. Reiki is not a religion. There's no dogma. It has nothing to do with a belief system. And if you're open to it and you can experience it, and if you experience it, then you know, and you don't need to believe anything.
Brilliant answer. So I know that you can't make claims about Reiki, but I'm absolutely sure that you've got some extraordinary stories of people's success having, you know, Reiki used on them, or them using it. So can you tell us anything about some of the experiences that you've had?
Oh gosh, there have been so many. Well, I mean, one of the things, I mean, there's a lot of physical ones that I can tell you. Um, for instance, I worked with a woman who had rheumatoid arthritis so bad that she could barely walk. She was just in terrible, terrible, terrible trouble. And when we started working together there, she would, like, I sometimes, okay, how can I explain this? Like, I don't do Reiki necessarily the way that people might be interested, it might be experienced in with Western Reiki people. But then there are similarities, you know, I don't mean to say that. But like, I do, everything that I do is intuitive. So I was holding her hand or arm or something, I don't remember exactly, this was a while back. But she said that as soon as I touched her, the pain left. Now, the pain came back, you know, I don't mean to say that it was gone forever, but over a period of time working with her, her health improved so much. Her pain was so reduced. And I recently saw her, and she was showing me how she can bend, and, you know, she can do all these things, and how good her life is. And that was phenomenal. And there have been other things like that, certainly. But emotional things I find particularly interesting. How, you know, people will, one person that I can think of came, and she was having a lot of problems with a neighbor. And it was a real difficult problem. I mean, it was like constant assaults verbally with this neighbor. And she couldn't move because she just built this, you know, beautiful home that, you know, was there, they weren't planning to leave from. And she was really just so distressed by that. And after we worked together, I would say not more than a few weeks. I mean, it wasn't very long at all. I taught her a couple, I always teach my clients things too, you know, not just classes. And it shifted, and she stopped having problems with that neighbor. And she didn't become great friends or anything, you know, but the problems, the hostility and everything really left. And that was huge. A lot of people have experienced anxiety. Like I've had many people that felt like they had like a basketball in their stomach all the time, just such stress when they woke up in the morning or whatever. And in a very short time, that was gone. And they were able to have much more peace in their life. Those are the kinds of things. And, you know, grief, I've worked with people with grief, a lot of different things.
Amazing. So you mentioned
Can we
that.
pause? Can we pause for 1 second? So sorry, my answering machine came on.
It's real life, real people, real transformational stories, Sally, isn't it? So all good. So you mentioned that you touched a lady's hand. Can you just say a little bit about what you actually do, so people who have never experienced it
have
some idea? There really is an experiential thing, isn't it?
Great question. Yes. Well, what excuse me, what I do and what I teach people to do is to just connect with the light, flow the light, and just flow the light to people. It used to be in person that I was doing this for the most part. I've always done some at a distance, but since the pandemic, I work with people with on video, and both teaching and clients. And so you don't have to physically touch people, even though that's the most common way that people share Reiki. But the important point is that you just flow the Reiki to that person, and they heal themselves. Reiki, as a Reiki practitioner, we are not healing others as that we're helping them to heal. So we're flowing the energy, but they heal themselves. And in fact, I always say to my clients, when at first I do a meditation with them, but then I say to them, say to yourself, I'm healing myself, or think to yourself, I'm healing myself and receiving whatever I need. And then I just flow the Reiki. And that's where the intuition comes in, that both in a physical setting or in a distance, a remote setting, I think possibly of different places to flow the energy because I'm being guided by my connection. And when I do that, I flow the energy to that particular place. Whether it's all about intention anyway, which is, I don't want to confuse people, but anyway, you flow the energy. That's all, my whole job. I don't need to think anything. I don't need to do anything specific except flow the energy.
So you're a conduit, really.
Yes, exactly.
Brilliant. So obviously I'm going to put all your links below this video, Sally. So please, please, please check Sally out and find out more, and maybe even have a session. I absolutely recommend a Reiki session. So, you know, if people were to look, Sally, they'd find that there are many, many, many people teaching Reiki. So there are lots of Reiki teachers about.
Right.
What would you say makes you different?
Well, I think the fact that I practice original Reiki principles, that makes me different. The fact that I am a PhD psychotherapist, I have a lot of understanding of mind, body, and spirit from those connections and other trainings that I've had. I've been working with energy medicine since 1978, and you know, those are the main reasons, I guess.
Wonderful. I've got one final question. When you are no longer on this planet, how would you like to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as someone who spent her life helping others.
Love that. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your story, Sally. So Dr. Sally Littleton, I can't even say it now, Dr. Sally Littleton, to get your name right. Thank you so very much for talking to us.
Thank you so much, Julie. And I do teach globally Reiki online, so you can look for that too.
Check Sally out.
Thank you.